Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on tips to effectively use your voice. So Peter Dew is my name, and I'm a public speaking trainer and coach. And my background is a person who stutters, a person being afraid of public speaking, a person who really struggled. And I come to this space being a presentation skills and a public speaking coach from that journey of overcoming my own inability to speak, my own fear of public speaking. And my passion is helping everybody find their voice, literally and metaphorically, so that you can contribute, put your point of view across, speak up at meetings, present at that conference, that state conference or whatever, and just participate the way you want to, and not let fear or worry about your inability to public speak hold you back. Your voice is one of those things that can make a big difference to how you're perceived, to how your message gets across. Not everyone has that beautiful radio quality voice, and we hear some of the radio DJs and they've got that intonation, they've got that lilt, they've got that music in their voice, that rich dulcet tones. Not everyone has that, but there are lots of things you can do with your voice that will help you sound more interesting, have more impact when you speak, and engage the audience. And there's things that the audience finds distracting, they find annoying, and will reduce your ability to have impact. Things that you can control, things that you can eliminate, things that you can change. So my aim in this webinar is to give you 2 or 3 ideas, 2 or 3 tools around your voice that you may think about and you may be able to use the next time you speak. So how to participate in webinars, a couple of new names and a few people have been on webinars before. Please ask questions as we go. You've been typing in the dialogue box, any stage, just type in the dialogue box. Take notes, and if you don't get everything down, as I said, send me an email after the webinar and I can answer further questions. Think about what I'm saying, and what's really good is if you apply it to your own situation. Think of a recent speaking opportunity that you've spoken at, a recent meeting, a recent workshop, a recent seminar. Is there anything you would do different as a result of what I teach you today? On the other side, think of a future presentation, a future public speaking engagement. What might you do differently? What might you include that you hadn't thought about? So I think it's the application of what I teach you today that's more valuable than just knowing it, because if you know it and don't apply it, then you don't get anything different. So what can you apply? Let me start with a question. What do you know about your current speaking voice? Have you ever had any feedback? And that's one of the things I would recommend people do. And one of the sad truths is when you record yourself on a digital recorder and play it back, or when you do radio interview and you hear yourself back on radio, that is indeed how you really sound. Scary, I know. I've heard myself on tape and I've done some radio interviews and I've heard myself, the recording of the radio interview, and that's not how I think I sound, but speech pathologists tell me that is how you sound. So what do you know about your current speaking voice? And the way to do that is get some feedback, self-feedback via recording, or ask someone to give you that information. And of course, I would appreciate at the end of this webinar via email any feedback you have regarding my voice. You can do an audit, a little self-audit, or ask someone to do an audit for you. What speed do you speak at? Some of the people I see speak really, really, really quickly, and they very rarely pause. Then there's the Bernie Frasers, the ex-federal governor of the Reserve Bank, who speaks really, really slow. Very clever man, and he does those adverts. speaks a little bit too slow for me. What speed do you speak at? Do you know? Do you use any filler words? You know, so, like, those words that don't mean anything? Obviously, actually, basically what we need to do now is basically move on, because basically I'm running out of time, basically. Do you have any of those filler words? Do you have a nervous quiver in your voice? Are you a nervous speaker? And if you are nervous, what I want to get out of this is you will know the quiver in your voice, but does the audience hear it? Because if the audience does not hear your quiver, it doesn't matter. And the quiver becomes irrelevant. It just becomes something you learn to accept. So I have a bit of a nervous quiver in my voice when I speak, but I know from feedback, no one picks it up. No one thinks I'm nervous. Okay, good. I can just move on with self-confidence. Can you be heard clearly at the back of the room? Do you need a microphone? The way to do this is get to the venue very early and speak before anyone's in the room. Have a colleague, a friend, or the audiovisual guy stand up the back and see if they can hear you clearly. If they can't, you need to mic yourself up. I was at a seminar last week, the Lung Foundation presentation, and one of the speakers came on and said, look, I don't need a microphone, and started speaking, and someone up the back shouted out, sorry, we can't hear you. And the person said, oh, okay, then I better use the microphone. That looked a little bit silly, a little bit non-professional. Is your voice interesting? Do you have that intonation, that variation, that radio quality voice? I do not. I have a fairly flat and monotone voice. I've heard myself back on the recording. So do a self-audit. Ask people who you trust, a colleague, a family member, or record yourself and do a quick self-audit of your voice. So moving forward, what do we need to know about our voice and how effective it can be? The pace and speed at which you talk. If you do speak too fast, and we'll talk about this later on, the pause is the antidote. Barack Obama is a very rapid speaker. He speaks very, very, very quickly. Most people, including me, find him an excellent speaker because of his use of pause. So he's got that rapid speaking, but his pause punctuates and gives the impression that he's slowing down. I mentioned my voice is not great quality. I don't have that radio voice. So you may have noticed that sometimes I slow down the pace at which I'm speaking, and other times I will speed up. Sometimes you speed up when you're energized and when you're excited and that passion comes through. But you need to also slow down to give people time to take in the information. Pace, speed at which you speak is very important. Change your volume. Once again, that's another tool that I use. I will soften my voice and I will increase my volume. Just using those two things, for me, changing my pace or the volume, creates the illusion of vocal variety, the illusion of an interesting voice. But it is an illusion. I don't have a good radio quality voice. So change your volume. One of the strange things is for your key messages, you know, that message that you really want to get across, choose the volume that you're least comfortable with. So if you're a loud, booming speaker, then go to a whisper as you leave people with that key message. If you're a very softly spoken person and that's your normal way of communicating, when you're presenting, the increasing of your volume just a little bit on the key points seems to have greater impact. seems to create an imprint in the audience's mind by going the opposite volume that you're comfortable with. So there's your volume. For me, changing my pace, changing my volume, and the magic pause are what gives me that interest to my voice. Go soft. You can go soft to create tension, to create attention, to create tension, to create attention, and to bring the audience back. So you know when you're brainstorming or you're facilitating and you want to bring the audience back and everyone shouts, now can you all come back please? And the audience gets louder. So you shout louder, now can you all come back? And you're shouting really, really loud. And then you have to use some sort of bell or you clink a glass. If you want to bring the audience back, go soft. Go as a whisper. And people will notice that they can't hear you and you're now speaking. So the volume of the room will come down as you go soft. And then go a little bit softer. And eventually the room will come down to your level. They'll stop speaking and you'll have them back in the palm of your hand. So don't be afraid to go soft and to whisper. The power of the pause. Pauses are really valuable things. I mentioned if you use filler words, ums, are, you know, so, like, pause is the antidote. I love this quote from Sir Ralph Wilson. The most precious things in a speech are pauses. A pause will fill the void. It will capture attention. It will punctuate, illuminate, and build the tension in a speech. So pause is a very powerful tool. One of the things I do in my workshops is I get people to count to 3 and then say And if that's your filler word, 1, 2, 3, The is said on an exhale, breathing out. So what you're doing is you're talking, slowly running out of breath, and then you go which is putting further pressure on an already depleted respiratory system. So what you should do is you should talk, pause, breathe in, reoxygenate, and then talk. So that's the antidote to the So the power of the pause, when to use pause. If you speak too fast, as I mentioned before, Barack Obama is my classic example, a very fast speaker, but he uses pauses really effectively. I want you to think of your message, I guess me talking to you today, I want you to think of that as brain drops. It's like rain. We're going to call them brain drops, not raindrops. When it rains too heavy, it just floods off. If you speak too fast, rapid fire, rapid, speak, people have no time to absorb the information you've just given them. So leaving the audience with silence is a brilliant way for them to absorb what you've just said. And it's called the post-pause. So you say something really profound and then you leave the audience with it, just for a few seconds. When your mind goes blank, use the pause. As I'm getting older and I'm speaking before an audience, and those of you who've been to my workshops know that I don't read from notes, I don't use my notes. I speak extemporaneously, and sometimes in my mind I just lose my way. Even this webinar, I'm not using notes. I have no script. It could go anywhere. And when my mind goes blank, or what was I going to say, the pause is what helps me get back on track. We mentioned the ums, and the pause allows you to breathe. So if you're getting nervous, rather than speaking faster and further deplete your system of oxygen, use a significant pause and do a couple of deep breaths, and to replace your filler words. That is the power of the pause. Are there any questions just before I go on? I'm just going to pause for a moment to let you digest what I've said and type into your dialogue box. Okay, no questions. Much of the stuff I've learnt about comes from Michael Grinder. He's a non-verbal communication expert, and he's been to Australia a couple of times where I've seen him present and been on his workshops. And I've also been to his workshops in America. Michael talks about group dynamics, and he talks about the value of silence in helping the group form. So silence will let the group know that it's okay not to speak. So imagine you're starting in a group and everyone's nervous, they don't want to be there, we're going to be talking about difficult stuff, and the group's not formed and it's not functional. What they want to do is they want to speak. They don't like silence. Silence is uncomfortable. Just imagine your first date with someone that you've never met before. You're on that first date. Silence is awkward. Silence is uncomfortable. So you need to speak. You need to do small talk. You need to fill that void. As a presenter, as a facilitator, if you demonstrate, if you model silence, then the group gets to see that it's okay to be quiet. And you help that group move from dysfunctional, you help that group move from non-formed into a formed and functional group by your modeling of silence. Okay, so it helps the group become more comfortable with silence. Silence, the pause. As a group leader, as a facilitator, as a brainstorming leader, you can demonstrate that silence is okay. There's my question and answer slide. From what I've said so far, does anyone have a sense they speak too fast? And the other question, are any of you aware that you use filler words, ums, are, you know, so, actually? Okay, one person's indicated that they've been told they speak really fast. Someone speaks fast when they get nervous, and the breathing will do two things. The pause and the breathing, two things, help you control your nerves and help you slow down. Yeah, good, good. And high-pitched. So someone who's stressed, their voice goes up. And that's about your intonation. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on. I guess one of the most important things is that self-awareness and the self-audit I spoke about at the beginning. When you're aware of these things, you can start to correct. If you're not aware of them, then there's no way you can correct. So a credible voice and an approachable voice. I want you to imagine that you're flying. The captain comes across the PA. This is your captain speaking. We will be flying at 35,000 feet. We have a flight time of 4.5 hours. I will get back to you closer to our destination. So the captain is using a very credible voice, and he's not negotiating with you whether you want to fly at 50,000 feet or if you want to fly for 5 hours or 3 hours. He's sending you information. Then the air hostess comes across. This is your cabin crew speaking. We would like to make this journey as safe and as friendly as possible. If there's anything we can do for you to make this journey more pleasant, please don't hesitate to contact one of the crew members. She is negotiating, or he. He is or she is trying to be helpful. The difference between a credible nonverbal communication and an approachable nonverbal communication you can see in this table above. And if you do want this slide, please send me an email. When you're credible, when you're the captain of your presentation or the captain of your workshop, your head is held still. You have a steady voice, less fluctuation, and it deepens at the end of the sentence. If you could see my hands, my palms would be facing down to the floor. As the captain, I am sending you information. If I want to be more approachable, now I'm into the presentation and I want to do some facilitating and I want you to give me some feedback. I'm seeking information from you. My head's going to bob up and down and my voice is going to go up and down. And in fact, it'll rise at the end of the sentence. My palms, if you could see them, are now facing up. I'm seeking to engage you. I'm seeking information. Sometimes you want to be the captain of your presentation. Sometimes you want to be the flight attendant of your presentation. Julia Gillard, our previous Prime Minister, used to bob her head up and down and had a fluctuating voice all the time that she spoke. The problem with this, it's seen as very approachable, and Australians are a lovely, approachable group of people. However, sometimes we don't enjoy the credibility that we deserve. Julia Gillard did not always get the credibility, the trust, the support that she deserved. Part of it was from her non-credible voice, her non-credible, non-verbal communication. So when your voice goes too high, your credibility is going out the window. So deepen the voice and maybe keep your head still, and you're less likely to have that high-pitched voice. Credible versus approachable. At the beginning of my presentation, let's say I'm speaking to you the first time, and some of you got on really early. I want to be really approachable. I want to be friendly. I want to have a chat with you. But as we get into the content and I get into the lessons, the way forward, I need to become credible. Because if I don't become credible, you won't buy my message. Credible versus approachable, really valuable stuff. How to look after your voice. Do drink fluids, lots of water. I've got a glass of water here by me, by my side. Drink apple juice or orange juice. Do not drink milk or soy products. So the skinny flat white, the soy latte need to go, especially if you have a quiver in your voice. Simply the protein will exacerbate any quiver, any nervousness. The pineapple juice or the apple juice will lubricate your vocal apparatus and protect it from any strain or any quiver. If you have a dry mouth, put a Tic Tac in your mouth. That'll help you to salivate, removing the dry mouth. Also make sure breath nice and fresh. Do sip water, have water up the front with you. Do you warm up your voice before speaking? Those of you who went for a jog this morning or went to the gym, did you stretch? Did you warm up your muscles? Those of you who walked on the HBF fun run yesterday, did you do a bit of stretching and just to warm up, or did you just go straight into the jog? One of the mistakes people do with speaking is they stand on stage and they open up their mouth and voice words for the first time. Do some tongue twisters, some humming, a little bit of singing off to the side somewhere. Go to the bathroom where no one can see you. Your voice is a very complex set of muscles, cartilage, blood vessels, nerves. You need to warm them up before speaking. Treat them like you would any other muscle. So, upcoming webinar, Friday, a checklist to ensure your presentations are a success. You know my website. I've always got lots of events, workshops in Bunbury, workshops in Perth, and some workshops coming up in Melbourne. While you're writing in any further questions, just remember, as well as workshops and webinars, I do one-on-one coaching and I do in-house workshops. So if you know in your organisation that people need to participate at meetings, they need to think and speak off the cuff, they need to do presentations, I'm quite happy to do an in-house workshop. Last questions about your voice. Any last questions? So remember, change your volume. The volume opposite to what you're comfortable with, if you're a loud booming voice and you work on the mines, going soft will grab people's attention. If you're a softly spoken person, that louder voice will grab people's attention. Use your pause to replace your ums. Use your pause to replace your filler words. Is there a quick way to avoid a high-pitched voice when speaking? Does this mean you have a naturally high-pitched voice all the time, or it gets high-pitched when you get excited or when you get nervous or when you speak too fast? If you have a naturally monotonous voice or a naturally high-pitched voice, voice coaching or speech pathologists can give you greater vocal variety. If it goes high with nerves, then the secret is to learn to control the nerves. And I would do more deep breathing, more relaxation, and more speaking so that your nervousness with speaking becomes less. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. Now, I'm not sure if you're an occasional speaker or if you speak every week. If you are an occasional speaker and you get nervous, then you need to speak more. Join a Toastmasters club where you're going to speak every week and put your speaking technique into practice. And then when you get nervous, practice lowering that pitch or practice not getting nervous. No questions from the others? Thank you very much. Any last questions? And we'll end the webinar now. As I said, any further questions after the webinar, feel free to email me. I'm quite happy to answer additional questions. Another thing, if you have any topics that would be helpful, please email me and I can schedule a webinar on a topic that suits you. Bye for now. And remember, what is your voice doing? Do a self-audit and then you can be aware of it and then you can correct some of those issues. Thanks, guys.